yourself, any of those things is applicable to this video. All right, that's why I love psychology, because it's really across the board kind of stuff. But it's healing, because if you think about it, the importance of changing the behavior, that question, if it's not zero, you're headed in the right path, right? So you might say, well, I have children and I don't want them to watch me die of lung cancer. That might be mine, right? Or I don't want my children to start smoking. They watch me, you know, I'm supposed to be setting an example for them, and here I am smoking, right? True story. I'm beating myself up here. But if you're not at zero, focus on the reason why you're not at zero, right? And then, you know, stay in that thought for a minute. And what would it take for the person to go from, maybe they said 5, from 5 to 10? What change needs to take place? What thought process or perceptions or lies that the ego has told you needs to take place to get your number from 5 to 10? So if 5 is where you are on the importance, how do we get it there? How do we get you from thinking that the importance is only a 5 to thinking the importance is a 10? And that's when healing really takes place. And this conversation with this scale could definitely be used to help, you know, people of domestic violence. It could help children that are maybe adolescents in, you know, the age of 12 or 13. If they're not liking their life, what needs to change? What behaviors need to change, you know, for you to be happy? And this is across the scale. If you're experiencing depression, anxiety, you know, anything like that. So looking back in time, going back to when a place in your life where the behavior didn't exist, maybe it's childhood, maybe, you know, maybe you started using drugs at, you know, age 20, going back to age 15, going back to that time frame in your life, try to picture your life without the substance, or the addiction. Try to picture your life without being a gambling addict. Picture your life without being in a place in your subconscious mind or that needs to get validation from others. Go back to a place where you did love yourself. That kind of question. And then what are the pros and cons? What are the pros and cons of changing back to that place, changing your behavior mind, changing your perception, and taking your mental, your perception of your life, your perception of your pain, back to a place where the pain never happened, it hadn't happened yet. What are the pros and cons? The cons would be, and this is something you have to answer yourself, but as an example, the cons would be, well, I wouldn't have wasted, 20 years of my life sleeping in gutters and stealing from people to feed my addiction. I wouldn't have, stolen 5 cars, and I wouldn't have spent 20 years in jail. I wouldn't have all of these down the line repercussions of your behavior would be, the cons. The pro, that's actually the pros. None of that would have happened. That is the pros of going back to a place in your mind where you weren't on that cycle, right? And the cons would be, what are the cons of not changing right now? What are the cons? So if you go through the cons, and it might be, oh, I could die tomorrow, or I'll spend the rest of my life in jail because I have a court date coming up from stealing a car, or killing somebody for their $20 in their pocket, or whatever the case may be. Maybe somebody that's a sex or porn or gambling addict lost their wife or husband because they just had enough. Maybe they lost their family. Maybe they're they've completely humiliated their family and they've lost everything. Maybe, so what are the cons? What's the pain associated with not changing? What is the pain associated with not changing? And this is a question you need to consciously ask yourself and consciously answer make sure you're recognizing that ego, without the use of the ego. Use your brain, use your experiences, use your heart. What relationships will you lose? Will you lose the relationships with your children? Will you lose custody of your children? If you don't change the behavior, what are the cons? What are the results? What could be the results of not changing the behavior? So when you're asking yourself the pros and cons of, taking your memories back to a place before the addiction began, and then asking yourself the pros and cons between, never having the addiction in the first place, how would your life have turned out? It gets the person to open their eyes consciously, and stop with the crap on the defense mechanism that the ego is using. The defense mechanism is the ego is lying to you, telling you these lies to keep you safe from feeling the pain of the consequences of the truth. And that's the ego's job. It just is. I swear to God, the ego is Satan. For real. So if you look at your past and you look at your present, you look at your future, what does your past look like? What does your present look like? What does your future look like if there was never any change? Because I can assure you, the only thing constant in the universe, not just Earth, because I'm spiritual, everything's universal, okay? What are the consequences if there was no change? And the only thing constant in the universe is change. Everything changes. Everything's energy. Energy is fluid. Everything changes. Emotions change, people change, vibrations change, experiences change, life changes. Everything changes. And that is the only constant in the universe besides the planets. But we'll see about that, right? All right, so that's it for today. Like, subscribe, share this video. If you know of anyone suffering from addiction and they might need a hotline, I'm going to get some resources and post in the description below before I post this video. So anyway, I hope this helps you, and I love you, and I will see you soon. All right, bye.